Weilà raga, how's it going everybody? Welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking about the Italian present tense. Let's take a look at our whiteboard here and get right to it. All right, the present tense, which in Italian is called the presente. Now, how do we use the presente? Well, we use the presente for talking about facts, a fact or a general truth, such as if I say, Il cielo è blu. Il cielo è blu. Right here with è, we have a verb in the present tense. This comes from the verb to be. The sky is blue. It's a literal translation. And we're using present tense because it's just a fact. You can also talk about it for things that are happening now, in this moment. For example, if I say, mangio una pizza. This can get translated to as I'm eating a pizza, I eat a pizza, and it could, if you add in some other words, be used for the future. So there are some situations in which this can be used for the future. If I say, tra poco mangio una pizza, or just simply tra poco mangio. In a little bit, I'll be eating. That's how we say in a little bit. So it just depends on the context. There obviously is a future tense in Italian, which we will get to, but these are some of the main usages of the present tense in Italian. Now, let's first talk about subject pronouns. These are very important as they will be present in all of the Italian language. So subject pronouns. Okay. In Italian, we call these pronomi, personali, or pronomi soggetti. I'm going to call them pronomi personali. Okay, I feel like using that term today. So these are when we say I, you, he, she, it, and so on. In Italian, this is what we have. We have io, tu, lui, lei, noi, voi, and loro. So, io is used for I, tu is you, lui, he, lei, she, noi is we. Yes, we. I was going to say us. Noi is we. Voi is also you, but it's the plural you. So often we call this you all, or you guys. Loro is they. It's either masculine or feminine. Doesn't matter if it's a group of guys or a group of girls. We use that. Now, when you're being formal to someone, if you don't know them, this is the informal you in Italian, tu. We use lei with a capital L if you're being formal. So this is the formal. Okay, but we'll get to that. So here are all of our pronomi personali, all of our subject pronouns. Now, depending on what the subject is doing, right? We're talking about the present tense, we're going to talk about verbs. There is a different verb form for each of these subjects. So in Italian, the subject pronoun is actually not always required when speaking. It's usually used for emphasis. However, if you do use it, it's perfectly fine. This will make some sense when we start looking at some examples. We're now going to have our hand at conjugating, okay? We're going to see how we take a verb and change its form so that it expresses that someone is doing an action. There are two very important verbs in Italian, avere and essere. These are fundamental to any language. Avere means to have. Essere means to be. We'll be seeing these verbs all over the place. So knowing how to conjugate them in every tense is going to be very, very helpful. We are obviously going to be conjugating these in the present tense. These, however, are called irregular verbs. So what is a regular versus an irregular verb? Well, basically what we can do is we can follow a certain pattern of conjugating a verb. Depending on the tense, there's going to be certain verb endings that we use. When a verb is regular, they're going to follow this cookie cutter pattern. Pretty much across the board, it's going to be all uniform. When a verb is irregular, it just comes down to memorization. There is a pattern, but it's not identical to every other verb. But I would like to conjugate these first, and then we'll get into regular verbs, just because these are so important. So let's begin with avere in the present tense. We say, io ho. The H is silent. Tu, I. And so this means I have, you have. Lui and lei are both a. I'm going to put the plural pronouns over here. Noi abbiamo. Voi avete. Loro hanno. So, I have, you have, he, she, and it can also be it has, because both people and objects have gender in Italian. We have, you all have, they have. Let's now do essere. So this just simply comes down to memorization, and you will be able to memorize these if you haven't already. Io sono. Tu sei. Lui, lei è. Noi siamo. Voi siete. Loro sono. So it means I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you all are, and they are. Excellent. So if I just wanted to say a very simple sentence in Italian, bringing together some of the stuff we have already covered in this lesson and the one right before it, I could say, io sono un ragazzo. And this would mean I am a boy. Tu sei una ragazza. Cool, right? So, yeah, right there, we're already able to start building sentences. It's pretty cool. All right. So, avere and essere. Now let's talk about some regular verbs and verb groups. So in Italian, we have 3 verb groups. 3 main verb groups. Okay. So, this means we have verbs that will either end in are, ere, or ire, otherwise known as end in are, ere, or ire. Depending on what 3 letters a verb ends in, that is going to indicate to us how it needs to get conjugated. So, I'm going to show you the present tense verb endings for all 3 of these verb groups. That way you could just kind of memorize the endings and use them for any verb. So let me make some more sense of this. Let's take the verb mangiare. Mangiare means to eat. So what I'm going to do is say I eat, you eat, he, she, it eats, and so on. And then I'll highlight the verb endings that you can then carry through for all other verbs that end in are. Okay, cool. So we have io mangio. Tu mangi. Lui, lei mangia. Noi mangiamo. Voi mangiate. And finally, loro mangiano. So, our verb endings for regular are verbs, verbs that end in are, are as follows. Io will end in o. Tu will end in I, or tu is the proper way of saying it. Lui, lei ends in a. Noi ends in iamo, or iamo. Voi ends in ate. And loro ends in ano. So you can take any regular verb that ends in are in the present tense, cut off the are and put in these endings, and you will have yourself a verb in the present tense. So just to give you an example, we have verbs like parlare, which means to talk or to speak. We have, let's say, parlare. What's another ere verb? Bere is an ere verb. Dormire is an ere verb. Parlare. What about scattare? Scattare is like when you're saying to take a photo. Let's do that one. Scattare. And can we do another one? Let's do riciclare. Riciclare. That might have two C's. Riciclare. It means to recycle. Anyway, if I want to say I speak, I take this photo, or I recycle, we just put an O at the end. So io parlo, io scatto, io riciclo. If you put an I at the end, if you put an O at the end rather, it just means that I do it. If I now want to say you do it, parli, scatti, ricicli, riciclo. You know what? Forget about riciclare. I don't like it. It may need the letter H in it because some words you then have to add an H to keep that hard K sound. Let's just forget those two. Okay. You know what we'll do instead? Let's do scappare. That's even better. Forget that. I just remembered another one. Scappare. S-C-A-P-P-A-R-E. This means to escape. So scappo means I escape. Scappi means you escape. Scappa means he, she, or it escapes. Parla means he, she, or it escapes. Take this A-R-E, remove it, and put in any one of these endings that we just spoke about, and boom, we get to the present tense. Cool. Hope that didn't confuse you with the stuff we were talking about with those other two verbs. Sometimes it's hard to think of a specific verb that has those endings. Let's now do an ere verb. Let's do leggere. Okay, leggere means to read. It ends in E-R-E. Okay, leggere. So here are the E-R-E, the ere verb endings. We have io leggo. Tu leggi. Yet again, we're cutting off that E-R-E, putting in an ending. Lui, lei, legge. Noi leggiamo. Voi leggete. Oops, what happened there? Loro leggono. So what are our ere verb endings? Io ends in O. Tu ends in I. Lui, lei ends in I. Noi is iamo. Voi is ete. Loro is ono. Now this is very similar to what we did with io. Just to give us a little look here, io mangio ends in an O. Io leggo ends in an O. Noi mangiamo ends in iamo, so does leggiamo. There is a lot of crossover. Tu ends in I for both of these guys. But the lui, lei ends in a for ere verbs, but e for ire verbs. Just like voi mangiate, voi leggete. So instead of being ate, it's ete for an ere verb. So there's a lot of stuff that just makes sense when you compare and contrast. Cool. And now let's do an ire verb. Let's do dormire. Dormire, which means to sleep. So we have io dormo. Tu dormi. Lui, lei, dorme. Noi dormiamo. Voi dormite. Loro dormono. The ire verb endings are always very similar to the ere verb endings. So io ends in o, tu, I, lui, lei, e. Noi iamo, voi ite, loro ono. So this is how we say I sleep, you sleep, he, she, it sleeps, we sleep, you all sleep, they sleep. And as you can see, the verb endings are pretty similar. Very nice. So why don't we do this? Let us look at another irregular verb. We'll create a sentence, and then we'll wrap it up. Sound good? Okay. So let's take a look here at when we have another irregular verb. So we saw avere and essere before. Let's now look at another one. I want to show you the verb volere. Volere means to want. Here's how it gets conjugated. We say io voglio. Tu vuoi. Lui, lei, vuole. Noi vogliamo. The GLI makes a y sound. Voi volete. Loro vogliono. So as you can see, this doesn't follow the same cut off the ERE, put in this ending way because the stem changes. Actually, now that I'm looking at this does have all of the same ere verb endings. O, I, e, iamo, ete, ono. It does. But what makes it irregular is that the stem changes. We go from VOGL to VUO, VUO again, VOGL again, then VOL, and then back to VOGL. So the stem changes. That's what makes this verb irregular. Let's take a look at another one. Andare. Andare means to go. Andare is an ere verb. Its stem also changes. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, stem or root. That's the same. Io vado. That means I go. Tu vai. Lui, lei, va. Noi andiamo. Voi andate. Loro vanno. Yeah, this though changes a bit more because when we say the loro, it's not just A-N-O, it's A-N-N-O. Yeah, so that's what makes a verb irregular. Not everything is perfect, but in a lot of ways, I, O, A, iamo, ate, now just has two N's. But the root changes a lot. So yeah, just to give you a little bit of an idea. The last thing I want to cover is what happens when you have two verbs next to each other. The first gets conjugated, the second does not. So that's why I wanted to include volere. Volere is also what we call a modal verb. Basically, it helps another verb to take on a different meaning. Not per se in this particular tense, but we'll see it in other situations. All right, so let's do some examples here. Let's just do some examples in the present tense. Cool. That way we could just see some stuff in context, right? Let's do number one. Let's say voglio vedere un film oggi. This means I want to see a film today. Voglio vedere un film oggi. When you have two verbs next to each other in the present tense, you conjugate the first, you don't the second. This stays in what we call its infinitive form. It's not conjugated. So voglio vedere un film oggi. How about instead if I just say I see a film? We don't need voglio at that point. I see a film. We're just going to say vedo un film oggi. And that's like saying I'm seeing a film today. It can mean that. I'm seeing or I see a film today. A film today. Cool, right? Let me show you something else. Let's say vedo spesso I film. Let's say con I miei amici. This means I often see films with my friends. I often see films with my friends. So I threw in a few other things here, but we just have a verb in the present tense. Io vedo. I don't need the io because it's understood when I'm taking the verb, showing it in all of its forms. Vedo, that ends in an o, is only for io, so I already know who we're talking about. Then I say often. Film is a borrowed word from English. They don't change the ending. It's just il film, I film. Con means with. I miei amici, my friends. We will be getting to this in a forthcoming lesson. So there you have it. I often see films with my friends. Another use of the present tense to talk about something that you generally do. It's a general fact or truth, right? Nice. Cool, guys. So I think that is a nice overview of the present tense. Thanks so much for watching this video. And be sure you stay tuned for all of our forthcoming lessons. We're going to have a lot of good stuff, always done in this way. Always remember to spread the love, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Va bene? Alla prossima, ragazzi. Ciao!